Hello there and welcome to another episode of the Sports Hut podcast. Tonight, as you can see, it's just the three of us. So we'll be passing over to Gav to start with, to round up at the start of the English Premier League and our Fantasy Football League.
Thank you. Yeah, no James tonight. No commitment for that boy whatsoever. Shocking.
Commitment whatsoever.
Absolutely shocking.
Shocking.
Yeah. Start
Says
of
it
the
all when I'm here and he's not.
Start of the Prem this week. It was nice to come back a bit more football into the than usual. And obviously the inaugural Sports Hut Podcast Fantasy Football League on the Premier League app. And we've got quite a few people joined. Actually, quite surprised at how many people have joined it. After week number 1, we've got the top of the table, El Papa's 11, which is James's dad. He seems to be the fantasy football mastermind from what the stories we've heard over the past few years. So it's good to see him in action. And we also decided we're going to do a prize for the best name team. And it's always a banter. When you're doing a fantasy football, it's always a banter out who can get the best team names in there. And there's a few good ones this year. And I think out with our kind of the ones who are on the podcast, the best name has to go to Michael Doherty for Schmeichel Jackson, taking a wee pun on the name. So if Michael is watching, get in touch with the page and we'll arrange a prize for you. But yeah, the Prem returning, all teams in action from Friday night through to this evening. 35 goals scored, which is 8 off of the record for opening day. So wasn't really pushing it, but I feel like the new rules for VAR and such has kind of contributed towards the goals, because there were a few that could have been like penalty decisions, etc., that wouldn't have, which weren't considered this week this season, but were last year. And what games did everyone watch?
I only actually really got to watch the Norwich. I watched the Norwich Liverpool game last night, and then the two today. That's kind of the only three I've been able to watch because of work and hockey.
I watched bits and bobs of games sort of the last 10-15 minutes of a few games, and got most of the match of the day stuff.
That's the most important stuff, just like the goals and the
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's when you watch all the games and then you decide you're going to watch match of the day later on when you've already seen them. But just to get the analysis spot on.
You've got to make sure you agree with what everything Alan Shearer says. Only one on the head is what he's talking about.
So we'll start off and we'll go through a rough analysing of our own games ourselves to make sure we are better than Alan Shearer. And I think we'll start with the biggest one that everyone was talking about, and that was the game at Old Trafford yesterday, lunchtime kickoff. Manchester United winning 5-1 against Leeds. Pogba with 4 assists. Graham Souness doing the usual Graham Souness. You've got to ask yourself why he didn't get the 5th assist. Can you ask any more of them? Bruno Fernandes, or as FIFA like to say, Bruno Fernandes, getting the hat trick. And we also saw a debut appearance for Jadon Sancho, and also the announcement pre-game of the signing of Raphael Varane. Do we think this is a season where Ole Gunnar Solskjaer gets his Man United team back into where they should be and pushing for a title more challenging across the whole season?
I think what they've done, the transfer window's been good. They needed another centre half to come in to be Maguire. They brought in Sancho as something different, because I thought they have good players in the attacking sort of winger roles, but I think Sanchez is better than them. And I don't think that the players that they have are consistent enough. I do not understand why they didn't get another defensive midfielder. Why Fred plays every single week, I have no idea.
He scored yesterday.
Could they hear his push? They're playing against Leeds. Leeds have they got a back line or anything?
Yeah, it doesn't really count. It doesn't really make much difference when they're already like 4-1 up, and then he scores the 5th. It's kind of like the cherry on top. It wasn't needed. It's just nice to have.
I think for what Man United are and what they've done, I think there was a lot of talk trying to get rid of Solskjaer. He's not done enough. They finished second last year, and it was one of those. It was a bad second because Man City had a really poor start to the season last season, that was Man United's chance to win the league. They went the whole season, sort of kept not close enough to Man City, obviously, but they finished second, and I think they've added to their team. So that, to me, puts onus on the teams around about them to make sure the other teams that we'll go into later are going to challenge. But I think they've done well, and the game that they played, you sort of have to take into account sometimes how bad the other team is. I'm hoping it's not a sort of a different season. There'll be a couple of teams that have had one really good season that Leeds had last year, and then they've just no done it the next again season. Actually, I like Leeds, I like Bielsa, and I'd like them to sort of compete and do what they've done last season again.
Mm-hmm. You like Bielsa?
I do like Bielsa, yes.
He's one of the most hated managers in football.
He's brilliant.
Spygate.
Anyway, moving on. Me and Mark were actually talking about this before we started, and we both he put a good point. Bruno Fernandes not being in the Portugal squad, basically, or being like a side part. Reckon he's probably got something to prove this season again. So he came in, was probably obviously Man United's best player probably last season. And this season he's now off the back of Euros and such, not getting played. He's got to prove himself and like, no, I'm good enough to play. You should have played me otherwise, and it would have made a difference.
I also think
I'm surprised he didn't get in that team, actually. I thought he would have played for Portugal. I thought he was better than the players that were on the pitch.
There's one of those things, because Renato Sanchez played quite a bit during the Euros.
Yeah, and he did play well. We mentioned that.
Yeah, well, he featured more than I thought he would, but he also had a very good season for Lille, helping them win Ligue 1. So it's one of those things. You've got some of you, what you're saying about a lot of players in the same positions. Portugal have a central midfielders, and it's who do you play? And it's more tactical based. If you can get a more attacking player on there, you would rather have Fernandes, because he does offer the outlet, and he's also quite a good playmaker. He was the second goal that they scored. As soon as he got that, the floodgates opened. However, I have to mention Luke Aylin's goal was a cracker for the equaliser.
Yeah. And
it looked like to bring Leeds back into it, they kind of got the tempo back after that quite a slow first half in terms of how Leeds played, but then after the second it just died down. Do we think that Bielsa and Leeds can turn the poor start as opposed to Man United's perfect start around and get
I think it's week one. They went against one of the big teams in Man United. Obviously, they're meant to be big rivals as well. I'm not sure who they've got next week, but
outside stadium.
I'll check. I'm just going to check who they've got. They've got Everton. They've got Everton at home next week, so I fancy them to have a better performance. Maybe not a win, but I think they'll probably have it'll be a tighter result than the 5-1 drubbing. Because they had that last year, didn't they? Did not get beat. Was it 5-3 or something like that?
It's that with Leeds, so they are that type of team. They're an attacking-minded team, and if they don't have enough, it's one of Leeds' main problems. They just didn't have enough on the back line. And whether it's the defensive midfielders that they don't have that needs to drop into it and cover the back line better, but there's a massive gap between the midfield and the defenders because everybody's just bombing forward. And that's Bielsa's style of play. They will annihilate teams this year, but they will also get annihilated. They must be fun to watch week in, week out, but a complete roller coaster. You didn't care what's going to show up.
Yeah. I've just had a look at the lineup there as well, and they're missing their. It was 6-2. I just checked it as well. And it looks like they're missing their star midfielder as well, and what's his name, Phillips. Phillips on the bench. It's like
they're sitting midfielder.
He does tend to make a difference. He kind of just runs and doesn't stop. Seems to sniff out the danger. Don't know if he would have made much of a difference, but might have made some.
I do think he would have made an impact. He is a sort of player that you just see perform well in those sort of bigger games, and as Martin said, the way that Bielsa plays is the attacking high tempo is the story of my life. He's sitting there, we need to keep going, we need to keep pressing. But even at times, he seemed quite flat and unanimated on the touchline, which he normally quite is. But we'll go on to the next game, which was another big game on the Saturday, and it was the European Super Cup champions Chelsea at home to Patrick Vieira's Crystal Palace, his first game in the Premier League as manager. A lot was said in the build-up about him never losing a game as a player to Chelsea. A lot of build-up was the same. Will it be the same as a manager? And then they get jubbed 3-0. I managed to watch the majority of that game and later on in the evening because they do the game of the day. I got a word game of the day somehow over Man United Leeds when it was a bigger screen.
I'm guessing because Man United Leeds was on BT Sport and Chelsea wasn't on telly at all.
I don't know, but I watched the game and I've got to say, Chelsea, the way since they played how Tuchel wants to play, some brilliant passing manoeuvres, great free kick from Alonso to get the opening goal. Second goal was some good play. Werner was unlucky not to score, but Pulisic managed to follow in to get the goal. And then the last goal was an absolute thunderbolt from...
Do you want to just record that? We could put that up every week. Werner was unlucky not to score.
It's fine. I don't think any of us have it in our fantasy team.
I do.
So does your brother.
I'm hoping that he has a good season.
Did he not triple captain him?
I'm not that stupid. I honestly, but I'll go back and talk about Werner after I mentioned the third goal, which was Trevor Chalobah, his Premier League debut. Absolute thunderbolt, came through Chelsea's academy, and after they scored the goal, he dropped to his knees in tears. But he's had a brilliant pre-season, played the European Super Cup, and fully deserves a start for Chelsea. But if we go on, I'll justify Werner's inclusion in my fantasy football team. I feel like Chelsea are only going to get better, and especially with signing Lukaku now. The way Lukaku did last season for Inter, he scored goals, but he was also the hold-up and managed to play off. So not only did he score the goals, but he played off to it was Martinez and also the wingers who played at Inter and helped them score. So I do feel with him holding up the ball, Werner running in behind, Werner could get more goals this year. And plus,
he could also get more misses.
His expected goals last year, sound like James, was 15. He only scored 6. So I think he's going to rectify that this season.
Yeah, but there's a reason for that. That's I have no
just
issue
finding
with him getting into positions. He gets into positions well. He gets really well. Gets in those positions. They score the easy tap-ins and misses.
It's like me at 5.
No, I think I missed more than you did at 5 last week. I'll make up.
I'll keep tally.
Do we think Vieira will be a success? Of course, we had this discussion about will he be in the season in a previous podcast, and I think the majority said no. Do we think he's got this to turn it around in terms of to get the players in that they need to get in?
I think it's less can he turn it around. I think it is more can they get the players, because I think their squad's threadbare. They've lost like all the experience from like Cahill, Dan, and all that, and Van Aanholt as well. You just can't look at it and go.
Even the middle of the park, even McCarthy and
MacArthur's still there. Is he gone as well? But but like you look at the. Okay, yeah, I think in pre-season, I think Benteke might actually scored a few shot corner, but I still think they're lacking just everywhere else in trying to fit in, because I think they rely too heavily on Zaha, and every team knows that, so they mark Zaha out the game, and then no one steps up. You've not got like an Anders Townsend on the other side now to balance it.
But you find that with I'll call them smaller teams, with the sort of mid-table teams, there's a few of the mid-table teams that they've only managed to get 1-2 top players. Aston Villa did it last year with Grealish, and because these are top players playing in a mid-league team, you've got the space to put 2 players on him, because you don't have to worry about everybody else. They're a pish. So you put 2 players on Zaha, and you let the rest of the team sort of shuffle about everybody else, and that nullifies your threat because Crystal Palace haven't got anything else.
No.
They really have to invest in the team. I mean, I still don't understand why Hodgson knew he was leaving 8 months ago, and all the contracts were running out, and they didn't have somebody in the back wings sorting out players, sorting out contracts, and now we're first game into the season, and they'll get relegated this year if they didn't get players in.
To go on to Chelsea and about the 3 points, Tuchel continuing to work. I don't think anyone expected them not to win the game, but for the performance that they had, and especially with, as I said, Trevor Chalobah starting, shows that he's meriting performances. And of course, with the signing of Lukaku, as we said, I think that was one thing that was missing from them last season, was a finisher. It was said about for the majority of the season, and I do think this is now going to be a serious challenge for the title this year because of that addition. But again,
I think what you've got with Chelsea now, is a pretty bedded team. Okay, you've got a few players that have been there for a couple of seasons. Obviously, you had Havertz and Werner coming in last year. They've now had a year there. Jorginho's been there a couple of years. Ken Kante's been there a few years now.
The spine of the team's pretty.
The spine of the team it's been there for a while, and all they're doing is adding to it. Lukaku is a massive thing, and Lukaku is a player that's the difference between a couple of places in the league. Yeah, it's the difference between finishing third or first or sixth and fourth. It's a massive difference.
It's like a massive. What's the difference between 6 and 4?
There may have been hesitation. But
the man from Leaf, leave him be.
Craig Miller. I don't know if that's any better or worse. But you and I both know Chelsea will do it right this year.
I do think that's a big thing. Is that the little things, as you said, the strong spine, it all adds up to come to a kind of a perfect symphony of play. You know, you've got the history of the players, Aspilicueta as well. I think Mitchell told me that he only needs to win a couple. He needs to win
if he wins the Club World Cup. If he wins the Club World Cup, and I think what was the other thing? Come back to me. I'll go through our messages and find it. But it's a Club World Cup and something, and needs to win something else. And he's won every cup other than the Europa Conference League with Chelsea.
Which is he's making history there as a Chelsea player. I mean, to have that one thing outstanding before he does that. But we'll go into the next game. I'm going to start off in a negative with the next game. But we were talking in the chat of the weekend about the best football chants ever and the best songs ever at football stadiums. But there was one at Carroll Road, some homophobic abuse from the Liverpool fans to Norwich's on loan midfielder Billy Gilmore. And of course, Scottish midfielder. We were ranting and raving about him in the Euros before he got COVID. But a strong Liverpool performance, let down by the fans. Of course, they came out and mentioned that as well. But is this Liverpool back to their best now, especially when they've got players like Van Dijk back fully fit?
No.
I still think their problem unless they can get like Thiago ticking over, I still think the problem's going to be when teams sitting against them. Because I don't see them having they've not, like, you let them go wide and let them cross the ball in. They've not got a big forward. Yeah, they've got Origi, but Origi's probably about equal Benteke in Liverpool terms. He's not great, and they've kind of always felt like they've missed, like Chelsea last season. They missed the target. They've missed the target man to someone they can play off. Because even when Firmino, even at their best, when it was Salah, Mane, Firmino was the one dropping deep. They weren't really scoring that many headers.
Oh, Mane.
I think I'd agree with that to a degree. I think Jota coming in has added to it.
Do you see him being a striker though?
No, but I think he's added to what's there. I think he's
depth.
I don't think any of them are out and out strikers. I think
No.
they're all sort of they're all a striker that would benefit from having a Lukaku or a Lewandowski or a Kane up front to play off of. But that's not the style that works with me. Yeah, I think they were linked to a couple of players. Who was the young Belgian boy with Anderlecht? What was his name? He played really well during the Euros. I cannot think of his name at all. I fancy them getting a player like him in, but I think they do need to add to the squad. They need to get start shifting some of the players who have had a chance there for a while and not produced. Your Shaqiri, your players like your players that have been there a couple of years. They're not first team players; they're backup players. You get short of them and bring in first team players to challenge your first team players. And that's I think that's what they're missing so far. Transfer window's still open for them, but who have they actually brought in this year?
They brought in Konate.
Oh, yeah.
Because at the back. I think that's about it. I think.
I mean, Van Dijk's like Van Dijk's like a new signing for them. Obviously missing most of last year, but everybody goes on about how Liverpool were bad last year because Van Dijk was there. Van Dijk was still in the team that Aston Villa beat 7-2. Yeah, the problems were before Van Dijk, and they included Van Dijk. So I still think that they have to refresh a bit more than they have. I think Klopp's been a bit loyal with the players they've got.
Fair enough, and we'll move on to Norwich. Today's game was...
we look good, but that's about
it. There's not much to say about Norwich.
No.
Daniel Farke is a brilliant... He seems like a brilliant manager. He seems like a very, very... For a German, a very turfy guy. He's...
I think when you...
Nothing can drag me down. He's always quite happy and quite alive.
Yeah, I think...
For a German as well, he's got quite a high-pitched voice. Which is quite funny.
I think what hurts Norwich this season though is like, also watch part of the Spurs game. They were saying that obviously Ollie Skip, he was basically that's what Farke built his team around. He built his team around Ollie Skip for Norwich, and now he's like removed them again. So it's like Norwich fall victim to all those. Yeah, I think Norwich like seem to fall in love with all their loan players, and then the loan players never really stick.
Yeah.
I think that there's a thing with them. I mean, at the end of the day, they've got to chat. They'll be fighting every game to get points. I think bringing Gilmore was a good signing. I think he'll do well there. After going off Hanley, I think Hanley will do all right at the back. Then he actually did played all right. Pookie, whether he can do it again. The last time he was in the Premiership, he had a wee run of goals, but I'd like to, if he can sort of hit the ground running, he can maybe get a finish in there.
He seems to strike me a bit of a. He seems to strike me a bit like Mitrovic.
Beautiful.
Pookie strikes me a bit like Mitrovic. He kind of, and he's good. Or like a Cameron Jerome. They're great in the Championship. Not so much in the Premier League. They kind of don't have that next gear.
I think a lot of the times teams don't know how to play against some of these players, but then one team finds out how to do it, and then all the teams sort of know. They sort of see the Premiership. They've all got analysts. They all watch the games. They all look at the players. They all see what they've done, where they go, who stands where for corners, what they do at free kicks, what they do at this. So once you've done it once in one game, they know what's coming the next game. And I think with players like Pookie, it's too much of the same thing. And he was doing the same thing. They couldn't stop it. He scored a few goals. And then it just stopped because the defender started knowing how to play against them.
Yeah. I do think we'll move on to the next. I've only got 2 more games I want to go over. very quickly before we go over to the kind of wee round off of this topic. So today's game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, funnily enough, Spurs were playing against Man City, winning the game. Champions losing their opening game of the season. Is this going to be a one and done for Pep Guardiola? Is he going to manage to? I think they're favourites for the title anyway, but with Man United playing well, recruiting well, Chelsea playing well, recruiting well, Liverpool going against Norwich. I think the other teams are going to.
I didn't fancy City last year. They're the same team effectively. Okay, yeah, they bought Jack Grealish, but Grealish and maybe Kane. If they get Kane, it might be a different story. But they bought Grealish, and the day I think they played him as like the left centre mid of the midfield three, and it's just like that's not exactly. They're kind of just shoehorning him in. He's kind of either like a left winger or like a number 10. He's not someone who you'll pick up middle park and run with it. But you've seen it at Aston Villa. He ran with it and then got tackled and lost the ball more often than not and drew the foul. Again, with City, I don't think he'll be able to get away with that. I think Pep will be down his throat with that if he keeps on doing that sort of stuff.
He did it a bit during the game. He did draw quite a few fouls, but I think what will benefit him at Man City, as I spoke before about players like Zaha, when you're playing for a pish team, you can have the other team will sacrifice two players to go on you, and he was getting that at Aston Villa. You can't do that against Man City. You can't have two players sitting on one player at Man City. If you want it wouldn't be Grealish, it'd be De Bruyne or somebody else. So Grealish actually getting an opportunity to isolate himself one-on-one against somebody. I fancy him against most players in the league one-on-one. And whether he had a couple of shots, go past a few people, a couple of cutbacks. He seemed to overlap Sterling. I think that's what I'm assuming that's what the plan was with it. And he was overlapping and underlapping, letting Sterling overlap. And I think if they can bond a partnership in doing that, I don't know if fancy being a right back in that game.
I was going to say that. They did do that in the game, but it looked more to me like Jack Grealish went out there, then he was in, then Sterling kind of just ran with him. There was no like, okay, Jack's going deep, I'll drop back or that. There wasn't that connection, and then obviously I think having Benjamin Mendy behind them gave Spurs a bit of a breather because he's a bit crap.
a bit crap.
For Man City, he's not what Man City need as a left back. He's too slow. He's crap for them. You said you heard Gary Neville during the entire game say it.
I think the saving grace for City is that they've got a game next week home against Norwich, so they can get a few goals and get confidence up. Try a few things.
That's another thing I feel with City. That's another thing I feel with City though. Another thing I feel with City is again it's a similar issue I think feel to Liverpool. They've not got a number 9. Yes, they've got Jesus, but Pep doesn't like to play Jesus for some reason. And so they go with so I think the day their starting front three was Sterling, Ferran Torres and Mahrez. It's not exactly you've got 3 wingers there, 2 of which like to cut in and 1 that likes to go outside, and you're playing the one that goes outside down the middle. It doesn't make much sense.
I think Pep overthinking tactics.
Yeah.
I think you've got to give James's favourite manager in the world, Nuno, a bit of credit as well. I think
I thought it was
Nuno makes a difference. That was sarcasm. Nuno makes
sarcasm.
Yeah, I got that.
yeah,
that was a double sarcasm. I think Nuno coming in, Tottenham didn't play like Tottenham. Tottenham by rights are a weak team that are weak-willed and they don't work hard. And it's Tottenham. Let's face it, it's Tottenham. It was, Alex Ferguson went in to do a team talk with all the Man United players one week, and usually does a big long spiel. Walked in, right? It's Tottenham in the day, boys, and just walked in. nice, easy game, simple, and all the big teams should be beating them.
Martin sounding like Jamie
But that
Carragher
was
over
the
here.
that was the Tottenham. That was the kind of the hard working, put a shift in. Are they better without Kane? I actually remember the European final, the Champions League final, where Kane was injured all the way through, and I'm sort of looking at it thinking they've actually got a chance of winning that if Kane doesn't play. Kane played the most. They'll be fine without Kane.
To leave that on the Kane point, we'll go on to the last game, and it was the opening game of the Premier League weekend. Probably the best game to open the Premier League weekend with, because of the fact that Brentford are going to be a lot of neutrals' favourites this year, because of their recruitment process, how they're run as a club, but also I thought their fans were some of the best fans that you saw this weekend, and the embrace that the players had.
The wee laddies. Did you see the wee laddies on the?
Yeah. It was Jamie Carragher on the commentary. He was like, "Look at that! Your team's first game in the Premier League, playing Arsenal. They're winning. And see yourself on camera. Yes, that's you, wee man. Enjoy yourself." And Danny went, "Oh, steady." You heard Jamie Carragher's voice. Jamie Carragher, Brentford winning 2-0 against Arsenal. Jamie Carragher commentary was ruthless. Turning around and be like, "Arsenal."
Oh.
It's like, oh.
I missed the game, but I came in for I was home after work for the post-match analysis with Neville and Carragher. Oh, as you're saying, they just ripped into him. They ripped into Ben White as well.
Rightly so.
Can't wait to see Ben White against Lukaku.
They played better against Hibs. We beat them 2-1 a couple of weeks ago. Just saying.
Banter club.
I think when you look at it, the commentators are saying it through the game, and it's quite obvious as well. The commentators don't have to say it. Tierney and Rose Smith, only players on the pitch.
Smith Rowe?
Aye, him too.
I think Brentford showed why a lot of people think that they could stay up this year, because they've got a different kind of dynamic. Thomas Frank seems like an amazing guy. I remember seeing him. We spoke about it after the playoff interview, and he was sitting swearing, and the guy was like, "What's your language? You're live on Sky." And he's like, "Fuck it, I don't care. We've just been promoted to the Premier League. I'm going to swear. I want to swear." And then he going round the lap of honour, sitting going over getting photos with the young fans. There was a wee girl with Down syndrome who was in the front row, and he went over and he properly embraced her, which you don't see enough of football. There's not that connection between fans and managers. So for someone like him to do that, I think he's got a great future in management in European teams. But I just thought it was a brilliant game to start off with. But that was going to bring us on to.
I think we have to finish with before we go. I think it's a nice wee link to what you're going to go to next. The Brentford fans at the end of the game chanting, "You're going down to Arsenal." That just shows how far Arsenal have fallen.
But I also think Brentford have done themselves a good favour. They've got. I think I looked to remember correctly. Their next game is away to Crystal Palace, and I can see them winning that.
Yeah.
I can't see Crystal Palace winning.
No. They might salvage a draw, but I think Arsenal's next 6 games are ha.
And it is so yeah, we'll go on to round this off. So top 6 in relegation of the season. I'm going to start off. I'm going to go relegation first. I think Norwich will get relegated. I think we can all agree on that. I've put Arsenal down as banter. I don't know if they will or not, but I'm going to say Arsenal maybe. I do think that. I just thought I've lost it now. The thoughts just got right out of my head. Wait, now I remind myself who's actually in the league. I've got Palace. Palace, I think, will go down. They've been going on a downward spiral for a wee while. Martin's on my screen. And I think Burnley, because Burnley's been quite similar and going down in a downward spiral. So I think that they might have a possibility of going down. No particular order. Top 6, again, no particular order on this. I'm going to say West Ham to trigger James. I'm going to say Leicester, Liverpool, City, Chelsea and United will be the top 6. What do we think then, guys?
Okay. The bottom 3, Who did you say? Burnley, Palace, and Norwich.
Maybe Arsenal.
Aye, maybe Arsenal. So my bottom three, I've got Palace, because as you said, they've been on that downward spiral for a while. And I've tossed, I can't quite decide between Burnley and Norwich who's going to be the third one that goes down. But I think my outside suggestion for the relegation is Southampton. I just think they've lost too many players. They've lost Danny Ings, who was a source of the goals. Yeah, they've got Shea Adams and Adam Armstrong. They've got Adam Armstrong in, but then they've also lost the big Vestergaard to Leicester, and like he was a rock for them. He was like a great fantasy player for them because he was getting you so many points just with clean sheets and chipping in with goals. Top six. I'd actually forgotten about West Ham. I might change my top six now. I'm gonna go.
I said Everton last year and I got slated for it.
Rightly so. So my top six.
Aston Villa won in mine last year.
Okay, mine to my top six. We'll need to ask Bundy. So my top six for this year, I'm going to go sixth place. I'm going to go West Ham. Fifth place, I'm going to go Leicester.
Who was it?
What?
He said you need to change it.
It was Spurs. It was Spurs in sixth. I think. I think West Ham and Spurs are going to be similar. Leicester in fifth. I think I'm going to put Liverpool are going to scrape fourth. I think Man U will drop away. I'm going to put them third, and I'm going to have City and Chelsea. Chelsea to win the title, I think.
Martin.
Totally not biased.
Martin, your ones.
Right, well, my bottom three, I'm extremely close to what everything Mitchell said, basically.
It's a change.
Palace. Well, what I had is I had Southampton was my first team that I wrote down for getting relegated. I think losing Ings and losing your best striker, your best defender isn't a good way to start your transfer window. Norwich I had down there. I think they'll sort of pick up mid-season, but I don't think they'll have enough. I was unsure, but was that?
There's a yo-yo team. Norwich.
Aye, they are. And I wasn't sure between Crystal Palace and Burnley, but I went with Crystal Palace. So that was
very similar.
Oh, yeah. Similar, yeah. And to go with Mitchell's top six, my sixth team is Tottenham with the Nuno effect keeping them up there. Then Leicester, then Liverpool. This is where it gets a little bit different because you're a Chelsea fan. I've got Chelsea in third, and I've got Man United to win the league over Man City. But I don't think there's going to be a massive points difference between first and fourth. I don't think it's going to be two teams sort of ahead like it was last season. I
made the smart move and say no particular order. Whereas you have kind of put positions on each one, so and the only difference
we're going to help you
is Spurs.
Yeah. I think looking at that, we're going to have to pin you down and who's going to win the league. Yeah.
See, it's one of these ones that I would love Chelsea to win the league. I do think they are going to be closer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, will they win it? I'm not sold on that yet, but I'm gonna stake a claim and say that I'll say West Ham sixth, out in a limb, Liverpool fifth, Leicester fourth, City third, United second, Chelsea first. With it being a three-way race up until the last couple of games, it's going to be tight. But I do think Leicester have enough to top Liverpool in terms of they got a lot more depth this year.
Yeah, there's also I don't know if you've seen the weird rule that's came in. There's a rule that's came in that basically, know how last season clubs could stop their South American players from travelling because of COVID.
Yeah.
They've not got FIFA aren't allowing that this year, so they're not. So Liverpool could lose the likes of Alisson. Who else have they got? They've got like I think there's three of the big players, like three of the players.
Cup of Nations as well, won't they?
Yeah, Alisson, Fabinho. I think it was Salah to the Africa Cup of Nations.
Firmino.
Fabinho. So there's like the three of them. It's just like that. If they lose these three, that can make a huge difference.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I think the Cup of Nations is always a big one when you start losing players for that because it's October.
It was Chelsea. Chelsea always had it bad because Chelsea used to always lose. Mikel, Essien, Pogba, and Kalou was their main kind of. They were always starting. So when we lost them in January, it was hard. But now we don't have as many African players in the team.
I think Premiership teams have started taking that into account. I think obviously you look at Liverpool, they have got Salah and Mane, but I don't think there's as many African players, and I think it's for that reason that you're losing them through a couple of months of the season. You can't afford to lose players for that long length of time.
Which will be interesting when it comes to the World Cup.
Yeah, which is crazy.
That's going to be mental.
They're going to have. I mean, there'll be a lot of teams in the Premier League that won't be able to field teams. They're all international players.
Brentford will be starting January 2023 top of the league.
Well, you notice that during the Euros, though, Chelsea seem to have a player in most squads. Mm-hmm. In the Euros, and there's a lot of teams like that. They've got a lot of international players for a good reason.
But at the same time, they also have about 170 odd players on their books. So if in doubt, we can field some.
I mean, they'll just have to pull back one of the 3,000 players and go to the loan.
But it's very interesting to get your thoughts on the top 6 in relegation and see who's going to win some silverware at the end of the season. But speaking of silverware, the Scottish League Cup, as Martin so eloquently corrected people this afternoon, Premier Sports Cup has been next round has been played and has been drawn. Apparently, shocking charging money. Anyway, how dare you charge money? Says me with a Sky subscription and leeching off Mitchell's BT subscription. But yeah, Martin, over to you for the Premier Sports Cup.
Not sure if that's legal, and thanks for divulging that on the podcast. So, League Cup. League Cup's a bit of a diddy cup to be fair, but I think we take it into account. It's a cup at the end of the day. St Johnstone, previous winners, they almost fell to the mighty Arbroath, but ended up getting through penalties. 3-2 on penalties they won. Dundee United, how ecstatic were they with a pitch invasion to celebrate their win at it was at Ayr. Aye, right, okay.
You only get that in Scottish football.
Pitch invasion to a mediocre team 3 weeks in.
I mean, Dundee beat dog shit Motherwell. Livy and St Mirren, another snowfest, a 1-1 draw to penalties.
Are you going to say anything nice about any of these games?
No, they're all pish. I mean, Wraith Rovers beating Aberdeen.
Hi, Jack.
Hi, Jack. Benji, how was the game? Then I'll get. I didn't actually see the Celtic game. Gavin, you can tell us what happened in the Celtic game. Not a bad performance from either team, but
we lost.
Yeah.
No, I just like I think I've seen. I've not seen much of it. I posted before I came on tonight, because I'm not fucking paying to watch on Premier Sports. Nor am I giving Celtic £12.50 to watch the game on Celtic TV. That's just fucking absurd. That's me just pulling that. I don't actually know how much it would be, but I'm sure most of them are averaging £12.50ish. But from what I've seen and what I've heard, it was like a good game. Robbie Nielsen's usual tactics in terms of going away to one of the big teams in Glasgow. A lot of fans dislike that. That's why a lot of fans dislike him. But when you go through there to play away, you've got to kind of set up to defend more than anything else. So for us to be able to kind of hold our own, I'll take it. It was Liam Boy's penalty got us back into it, and then we had a McAneff, Aaron McAneff, the young Irish midfielder. He scored the second for us. But I think it's just the strength in terms of Celtic's team. Edward scored, Furuhashi, or Kyogo, as James would sit and rant and rave and sing some songs about him. He seemed to.
He's still trying to make up a song that doesn't fit, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think when you go, for the fact it's a home game with fans, you kind of got to take that in. For us not to get walked all over, which a lot of people expected from Celtic against Hearts this season, me being one of them, especially after beating them first game in the season, a 3-2 defeat at Celtic Park, I will take that. I'm disappointed we didn't get further in the Cup, but hopefully we seem to do well in the Scottish Cup, so hopefully we can make it a third final. In terms of, technically we played a final a Scottish Cup final last season, so is it 3 finals in a row then, on a technicality?
That's not fitting.
You consecutive finals, does that work?
I know the other game, Hibs beating Kelly, it was I don't think there was ever much in it, 0-0 at half time. McGuinness coming into a game for Hibs. But obviously Hibs and Aberdeen suffering from midweek. Suffering midweek from the European ties that we'll go into a second. But the quarterfinals now of the League Cup, which I don't have right in front of me. I know Hibs are playing, and Gavin scurries away to draw up. I did post it on the group chat earlier. Hibs, Dundee United, obviously St Johnstone are playing. Filling in time here for Gavin. So St Johnstone's still giving me a shout to retain the cup. But really, the big. With Aberdeen not being in it, it's one of the teams out. So you've still got Rangers, Celtic, St Johnstone, Hibs, Wraith Rovers are still in there. Dundee United against Hibs. Livy will go through, but I can easily see the semi-final being made up of Rangers, Celtic, St Johnstone, and Hibs.
Yeah, so it's Celtic, Wraith, Rangers, Livy, Dundee United, Hibs, Dundee, St Johnstone. So I would agree with that in terms of the semi-finals.
Unless there's any big upsets, so I can see
Lauren Shankland scoring a hat-trick against Hibs.
It'd be difficult. Is he no way to Belgium by now?
I don't know. I've not heard anything yet.
Beer shot. Look at him. But that's a League Cup.
I think it'll be an interesting semi-finals with those teams in it, depending on the draws, because Hibs and St Johnstone both have a shock in them, in terms of they could nab one of the big boys. However, saying that, Rangers draw is at home against Livingston, so Livingston could highly win that as well. Because
let's face it,
you're guaranteed it's a cinch that when Rangers play at home, they're going to play.
Completely and utter cinch. Which brings us to the European ties, because Rangers have found themselves coming out of the Champions League. Celtic winning a game in the Europa League. Is that their level? Is Champions League just a step too far for Rangers and Celtic, and they are mid-Europa League teams? Is that what we think? That's what I think.
It's a big claim.
I don't think you're far wrong. I really don't. You see, Celtic have struggled in Europe for I don't know how many seasons now, regardless of. Obviously, when they fell to the mighty
67.
Yeah, when they fell to the mighty Gibraltar team of Lincoln Red Imps. Back in, I don't know how I can't remember, it was like the Ronnie Dyler era, but it just seems like.
So was that not when Brendan Rodgers? Was that not his first game in charge with a loss to Red Imps in Gibraltar?
And
Could well
then
be, I can't remember.
No, keep in mind, Andy's came in, but I'm sure Gordon Strachan's first game they got beat 5-0 from a fishy team somewhere. Apologies if you support that fishy team, Bratislava or something. Anyway, so being first league in Europe, not really getting much of a chance to bring players in. It was never going to end well the first for Celtic in the Champions League. But I think Europa League is their level. I think there'll be players in and around their ability in that league.
I do think
Rangers the same. Especially when you come up. Sorry.
It's always depending on the draw. Obviously, no matter what cup game you're in, depending on the draw, you're going to have a favourable draw or an unfavourable draw. But
I look at St Johnstone.
Right, exactly. But they, in my opinion, they held their own.
I did.
They didn't get humped as much as I thought they would.
I think you've got to take into account with the things like Champions League and Europa League. All the Scandinavian teams, the teams in that area, the teams, Hungarian teams and places, they're all decent teams. There's no mugs when you get to that level. It's not like I will pick on sort of your Irish teams, your Welsh teams, or your Gibraltars, or your leagues like that. Some of the leagues are decent leagues. Malmo are a decent team. We had Molde a couple of seasons ago. Maribor, teams like that, they're better than us.
Now, this is where it's a case of the next fixtures. Of course, Scottish coefficients and all that shit, we're going to sit and say, support the Scottish teams. That's not going to happen. But so, Wednesday night.
I will support all Scottish teams apart from Rangers and Celtic.
Fair enough. I respect that. Does that include Hearts?
Hearts are in Europe, so I don't have to make that decision.
Where, hypothetically speaking.
Hypothetically speaking, if Hearts get into Europe, then I will support all the Scottish teams apart from Rangers, Celtic, Hearts.
Sorry, I mispronounced that. Hibs are pathetically. Sorry, I'd get on in there. I'm sorry, but you lost against some two-bob Croatian team. You got fucking humped by some two-bob Croatian team. But anyway, the next fixtures. So Wednesday, Celtic are against Alkmaar, and we see Celtic winning that. Is it Alkmaar? Decent team in Holland.
Nah, I can't see them do it.
I think they're about Celtic's level. I can see Celtic sort of being they're not going to get gubbed 3-0. I think it's going to be close as it gets to the end of the tie, and I can see Celtic getting some.
So obviously, if they win that, they go through to the Europa League group stages. So same with Rangers. Rangers are playing on Thursday. They've got Alashkert.
No, is that a Romanian team? Is it not, or something? I think.
It doesn't tell me on this app.
Good homework, Gav. Good homework.
The last game they lost 2-0 against Van. Yeah. I'm going to say possibly Kazakhstani.
Armenian.
I was close.
You weren't actually that far off. I will give you that.
Thank you, mate.
You're
it's the far side that no one goes to in Europe.
Unless you're UEFA and you plan games in Baku and you make every team fly there for Euros, apart from your big teams like England who play half their games at home, and Germany and Spain. No, me, I'm not better, but I'm just saying.
Wait a minute. England didn't play half their games at home. They played all their games at home. Partly fucking won.
Sports podcast aren't better. We don't hold grudges.
Anyway, looking at that, and I believe is the case that if Rangers or Celtic lose, they will still go into the group stages of the Europa Conference League because it's
the shambles.
The shambles.
The shambles.
They need to make sure that the teams that were in the Champions League are getting as much TV coverage as possible. So they've got a cushion and then a cushion. And the fact that Rangers and Celtic have lost 6 games and still been playing group stages in the European competition is just a complete and utter fucking farce.
I think the bigger farce is that when you look at it, it's like, yeah, okay, you've got Rangers Celtic, they're losing 6 games, and you've got teams like Tottenham. Like, Tottenham, let's be honest, Tottenham has being a Chelsea fan, they aren't that bad a side. They should walk most of the Conference League. You've got teams like Tottenham, Roma. You're like, no matter what group they got put in, you'd expect them to win it if they take it even half seriously.
Right. And I think Basel are in the Conference League.
It's one of those things like you're going to look at it. It's like it's got to turn into a thing of.
Right. Teams like Tottenham, Roma, Hibs, Basel. You sort of.
Are Hibs on the same level as Basel?
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I see Hibs being in the Europa League.
No. What he means, I think he means Hibernians, not Hibernians. Hibernians.
Yeah.
I almost put money on them actually. They were right beside Hibs in the thing, but. I think there's a definite gap somewhere for the European competitions for that.
Before we digress too much, will Rangers beat Alaska?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, to go into the other games, Carabag. Aberdeen have Carabag. No, Carabag have played in the Champions League.
Carrier bag.
Carrier bag, yes, 5 pence charge.
Carrier bag.
At least. Bag for like 25 pence worth.
I suspect Carrier Bag might actually win that. I don't trust Aberdeen. I don't think they're good enough.
If they're losing to Wraith Rovers, I'm still going to go with my support of Scottish teams apart from Rangers and Celtic and say that Aberdeen will beat Carrier Bag.
Okay,
I'm going to support them. I still don't think it doesn't mean I think they'll win.
Who did St Johnstone get after?
That's what I'm going to go into. I was going to say the last one because I can't see Hibs here.
I don't think you can see Hearts either, though, can you?
See if I go to today's games, they're there. Maybe not on Thursdays.
So who's St Johnstone got? And then I'll go into Hibs.
Lask.
Lask.
LASK. They are. They again. There's another team that's played in Europe.
Champions.
They're an Austrian team. They played in the Champions League. They're sitting 5th in the Austrian league at the moment, though.
I think Lask have had issues. I think their strikers have no scored. I think their manager's almost ready to get sacked. And I reckon St Johnstone just put that final nail in the coffin.
Well, this is a St Johnstone tweet from today. That they obviously opponents got beat 3-1 at home today. They've only had 1 win in their first 4 games of the Austrian Bundesliga. They lost against the second place team at the moment. Obviously, before today, they were roughly level on points. So only 1 win in 4. Do we think St Johnstone have a chance against that?
I think St Johnstone. I think when you look at how they played against Galatasaray, I think they've got a chance. It's more a question of will they be able to keep it up over the 2 legs, and I feel like they might sneak it. I feel like they might sneak it.
Mitchell, they drew 2-2 with Arbroath.
It was their cup side.
They did well against.
I think
they did well against. What do you call them?
Galatasaray.
Well, to be fair, they've played the cup game after playing Galatasaray only during the midweek. So
yeah, this is where I think that Aberdeen and St Johnstone have a good thing. Is that? Pardon me, their first legs are away. Then you come home and you know what you need to do. Whereas Celtic and I was going to say Celtic's first legs at home, Rangers' first legs at home. So that means Rangers have got a difficulty for both their legs because fans can't play in front of fans. But Celtic at home, so it's going to be, I think, there it's a bit harder to go away from home, and then it's an intimidating place to go when you're. I always prefer first, second leg to be at home, first leg to be away, so that you know you're coming to your stadium, you know what you need to do to get your fans behind you, even if it's a 5-0 turnover, your fans will drive to that or try and drive.
Liverpool. Look at Liverpool when they beat Barca.
Yeah. Exactly.
It can happen. You just need to have the talent.
I think I'll go about the Hibs game a bit because that was one of Hibs' issues in their game in Croatia. The first leg in Scotland, they were much better than the team, produced much more chances.
Didn't finish half of them.
Sucker punched me a goal, got a goal back, drew 1-0 at home, thinking we're better than this team. That's all right. We'll go away. We'll beat them away because we can. We're better than them now. And then we went away. Hanlon injured because of a head knock from the first leg. Darren McGregor stepped in, decent standing to be fair, 36-year-old centre-half who a lot of Hibs fans actually prefer in the team. He got sent off. And at that point, I think when you're in a game and it's 1-1 and it's in Europe, finally you can hold on to it. If you're 2-1 down, you've got to push for it. And I think the final scoreline didn't reflect the abilities of the team. It more reflected the fact that if you're 2-1 down, you're pushing forward and trying to get goals.
2-1 down and a man down.
Yes.
Is it bad for me to say that I really, really wanted them to score another one?
Yes, that is. And at the end of the day, I think what the Hibs will now be able to concentrate on is the league now. So we haven't got
the Premier Sports Cup.
We haven't got like Aberdeen and St Johnstone and Rangers and Celtic European games, and you know that the best time to play these teams are when they've just played a European game midweek before playing you. So I'll take the positives from it. I think European league stages would have been great, but the fact that 4 other Scottish teams will be participating in that and losing points during the league table, I'll set up for that. So we can start pushing past Aberdeen, which I think we're already better than, and hopefully get a bit closer to Rangers and Celtic.
I agree with that, just for perhaps. Aren't the Edinburgh teams still top of the league at the moment?
Yes.
Finally, something you can agree on. It's weird.
Which we don't agree on much. Yeah.
We agree on more than what you think. We agree on more with each other than we do with like things that James comes out. I mean, you've got to look at the positives here. Which I'm actually really interested to see what the league looks like at the moment. As Martin pours himself a pint.
Priorities, eh?
Oh, see, well, Aberdeen are second. Hibs are first.
I'll need a plate for that one.
But anything else on the Scottish football front, Martin?
That's basically it. Looking forward to the next rounds of games, getting back to the league. I haven't actually looked to see who's playing this weekend, which is a great foresight from myself. I think
Aberdeen.
Aberdeen.
Which I'm looking forward to considering they're playing on Thursday.
Yes, so Ken, and that brings that sort of part into it. You're looking forward to playing these teams. You can't take points off them. And is that Tynecastle or?
Yeah, Tynecastle.
You'll be looking forward to welcoming Scott Brown back.
You get picked up in the park. Andy Halliday and him will have a fucking brilliant battle. Which one will get sent off first?
Well, you saw that Hearts would do that against Celtic though. Halliday was kicking people left, right, and centre and got subbed before he got sent off, and then Haring took over for that and kicked people until he got just about got sent off, and then he went off. You just have a system of right, get the next hatchet man in, and right, he's almost about to set off, take him off, put another hatchet man on.
We just need rolling subs for the kind of muscle man in the middle. The enforcer role.
Aye.
The sigh from Mitchell says it all.
There's a reason I don't watch Scottish football. Mainly because it's not on telly, because you make you pay for that shit Premier Sports.
Pish.
I'm sorry, like before
no,
we.
I don't know if it's just because like we've got Stockholm syndrome or something where we're into it now and we've been there that long and we're sort of stuck. But I think I still think Scottish football's magic. I do like it. I think the ability level isn't there with all the teams, but when you get to know players and get to sort of go on and do it, it's still my favourite league.
Has to be. Always support local. Lockdown taught us one thing.
Apart from Falkirk, didn't support them.
So on that, I believe it's time for me to choose what the round table is going to be. So,
I'd like to fill everybody in quickly on this because Bruce was supposed to be taking lead role in this podcast, and we got messaged at what time did he take it?
It must have been 8 o'clock.
He didn't give us much notice at all. So Mitchell's going to be taking the round table, which he has had about 30 seconds to think about.
Yeah. So
we apologise.
No, we don't. This is what we usually like. So as always, we're just going to go with. I've just googled what's trending on Twitter.
No control.
Just googled what's trending on Twitter. The top 3, I believe, are Love Island. I have no idea what that actually is. We're not doing it. The next one's cricket.
Shahan
would be perfect. It's West Indies versus Pakistan. The next one's political. We've not got James. So the first one that's actually sporting is Souness. Graham Souness. So again, I think going on I think it was Martin said it earlier, Souness. He had 4, I think it was Micah Richards. He had 4 assists, Souness. We expect that from £100 million man getting in. Yeah, so my question is to you is...
Gavin said that, but aye.
It was a Gavin. I was one of these. I had a 50-50 chance. So my question is... Exactly, 50-50 chance. I just got it 100% wrong. So my question is, sports pundits, what is the worst line you have ever heard a sports pundit or commentator come out with? And I'm not meaning like Gary Neville's where he's like, when Torres scored.
My favourite one. My favourite one was during the World Cup, not there, the one before. I'll have to fill in the blanks for a couple of these bits. I can't remember who. I think it was Seedorf and Deschamps, maybe on the. It was Adrian Chiles talking to Martin O'Neill, and it might be in Vieira. Anyway, there's 2 top players sitting beside Martin O'Neill, and Adrian Chiles decides to turn around to Martin O'Neill and say, I think they were analysing a phase of play, and a defender sort of turned his back and shit himself there. And Adrian Chiles turned to Martin O'Neill and said to Martin O'Neill, I'd imagine you would be that sort of player who just sort of shy away from to something like that, not knowing that the sort of level of player that Martin O'Neill actually was when he played. So Martin O'Neill goes on a little bit of rant, saying, definitely didn't do that. I played under Brian Clough. I played under this, kind of one of the best teams that English football's ever seen. And I'll remind you that the 2 gentlemen to my left-hand side have only got one of the top. Actually, I think they only had one each of the Champions League, and Martin O'Neill had won 2 of the European Cup, the top level, which is now the new European Champions League. Just shut Adrian Chiles right up, and he just made Adrian Chiles look a bit of a fanny, because he said that a guy who's sitting there in his mid-50s with glasses on and quite slim, obviously forgetting the fact that he used to be one of the top player in a top team.
See, there's a few of them that are just like contradictory, which is what I'm going along the lines of. I remember there's one that was Ray Parlour getting interviewed about the Invincible season, and it was the last 6 games was when there was a lot of really pressurised because we were under pressure. It's like, well,
For sure.
capital base. But it was one about because Michael Owen has to be the fucking.
Oh God,
he's
yes.
the king of this.
He
We weren't going to get
biscuit.
through this without getting mentioned Michael
Oh,
Owen.
Because it's just because he's so contradictory. He just contradicts himself all the time. It's like a striker. Oh, see, that was a good chance for a good finish, but he didn't finish it. Well,
I think one of my favourite ones for him was when you don't score any goals,
They
you
hardly ever win.
ever win a game.
Yeah, that's first what came to my mind when I asked the question.
I think as well you've got to Paul Merson's quite good for them as well. Paul Merson said a couple on Gillette Soccer Saturday this weekend. He was in the Chelsea game, and he said a couple that were just mental. I don't understand. I generally don't understand them. And he was like, the way he was talking about the second goal for Chelsea and the ball. No, the third goal. Sorry, the ball came over into the middle to Werner, who's on the right hand side. So the ball came into the middle into Werner. So it makes you think, because obviously you can't see the game. So like, he's in the box. Who's on the right hand side of the box? Plays it out to Mount. Who plays it out to Chalobah, and he just whacked it. And it's like, what? Make the mind. No, it wasn't actually. It was Alonso. He had a header and it was saved, and it was played over to Werner, who played it to Mount and played it into Jorginho. And Jorginho, without looking, played the ball over because he knew it would be there. There was Werner in the middle, but he received the ball on the right hand side of the box. I'm sorry, but you have not helped me at all understand where Werner is in the field. It's your job. Doing sort of radio commentary, like obviously I said about the commentary for the blind fans and such in here. You are their eyes. You need to explain the pitch to them. You've not helped. You've made it worse.
I think honestly, see just watching the Champions, when you watch Champions League on BT and you get an English team and you get Glenn Hoddle, like the Super Cup, Glenn Hoddle and Steve McManaman.
I love Glenn Hoddle. I think he's hilarious.
I think Glenn just talks a lot of crap most of the time. Like
he's biased. He's total so biased towards the teams he's been with. Like Spurs and Chelsea. He's fucking up their arses so much.
He's so biased. There's a couple. I've got a couple. Managed to find a couple quotes. Like here's a couple. Like here's like I think it was like I just googled it because I wanted to see what other dumb ones I could come up with. Here's some Terry Venables. They didn't change positions. They just moved the players around. David Platt. Not only has he shown Junior Lewis the red card, but he sent him off. Like that's what red cards mean. Kevin Keegan playing it down. In some ways, cramp is worse than a broken leg. What?
And I remember when David Beckham moved to LA Galaxy, and he got interviewed. Where do you? Oh, it's not pundits, but as a player, but where do you find your strongest position? And he's like,
doggy.
I can play in the centre, but I can also play in the left and sometimes on the right. And it's like, right. So this is the whole of midfield. Again, it's just contradictory. It's like, make your fucking mind. No, footballers aren't smart, are they?
No. Well, some are. I think we could all agree. I think it wasn't commentary. I think the only comment on it was news reporter to Kasper Schmeichel. What do you think of It's Coming Home? And Schmeichel has ever been home.
Stupid comment. There was another one with Kasper Schmeichel. One of the pundits said that Peter Schmeichel was like a father figure to Kasper Schmeichel.
Jamie Redknapp. It was Jamie Redknapp that said that.
I think if you go a step further and say managers as well, I feel like, have you seen any of Ange interviews? He is fucking quick and he's brilliant. But also Malmo's. Did you see what Malmo's manager said midweek? They were sitting asking him, how will you handle the pressure of coming to Ibrox? Would you feel pressurised? And he's like, well, you do Rangers need the Champions League money more than we do. Like, fuck it. But from this weekend, I've got to praise the fact that the most games that I've seen on TV had a female either commentating or a pundit. from the women's side of the game, and I think they have shown that they know more than the guys. It's been very well done.
It does help when they're going up against like Michael Owen, Souness. Especially Souness does have some moments, but he just hates his play, hates some people. Come on, we've missed out the best one of Cammy.
Cammy's awesome. I do not mind at all women pundits, but for the first 6 months of them trying to introduce them, they went through a lot of terrible pundits to try to actually manage to get the ones. And this is not any bias on the me and female or not. Some of them were awful, and it was helping the case to have it. They've now got to a point where they've got a few good. Alex Scott? She's pretty good. There's a couple of other ones that are. Who's the Alon? What's the guy who's with the Rangers? His sister, Aluko. So she's pretty good. There's a couple of other ones, but I just don't like the idea of shooing in as many women as possible just because they're women. You make sure that the people are actually capable of doing the job, and also then they shoe in ex-professional players just because they're ex-professional players. Make sure they can actually do the fucking job.
Yeah, Robbie Savage, fuck off. I think.
To be fair, Savage and Sutton are funny. Savage and Sutton together are funny. Robbie Savage on his own is awful.
I used to enjoy the Scottish pair of Craig and Sutton. I thought that was quite a good pair because they used to just wind each other up.
That slight tackle that Craig had done on Sutton. Awesome.
I do feel like they were trying to do a Neville and Carragher 2.0 for Scottish football, but it didn't really work out as much. But like to go in the women's side of things, Alex Scott's really good. Aluko was really good. There was the female commentating the Man United game, and I thought she was brilliant. I can't remember her name. I thought she was a really good job. I think it's Sue. What's it, Sue? Someone. And then
I'm sure there's a Karen somewhere as well.
Yeah, Karen Carney. I was just coming on to her. I thought she was.
Is she coming on to they kind of have Jeff and the boys for Soccer AM anymore because no Soccer AM, Soccer Saturday used to be Jeff and the boys, but now there's going to have I think Karen's going to be in there as well.
Is she not on BT Sports Score now?
Maybe, but there was a.
Carney.
I think it was that Sue who was. I'm going to call her Sue. I don't even know her name, Sue. Who was commentating the Man United game. She was on covering one of the Premier League games for Soccer Saturday.
What does she look like?
Might have been her.
She looks like a female with short blonde hair, quiff.
Oh, I'm not actually a fan of her. I think she talks a lot of crap most of the time.
See, I think it was her that was on the commentary for Man United. I thought it was quite in-depth commentary, but I think the whole rounding up on the July Soccer Saturday, you've got to be good at that and have a bit of banter with that. I think it's a very niche market to get people to fill that role in. Pundits are hard to come by in football nowadays. Get us in the social done.
So, on that note of wrapping up, thanks for joining us on our episode of the Sports Hut podcast. We apologise for it being so last minute and rushed. We literally organised this about 10 minutes before we came on to record. But as always...
Did they tell them? I think we got through that without them noticing.
You told them. As always...
One thing we didn't have to say. No control.
It's fine, no one makes it to this part.
Just walking in the woods.
Said it. I like how I start whispering and you lean forward as if you're going to hear me there.
So as always, like and follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel for new episodes weekly.
When James isn't here, there's no decorum, eh?
There is not.
No decorum whatsoever. Very uncouth. Social podcast.
Good guys.